Hello everyone and welcome to the Spice Squadron episode 22. That's this one. This week, you're tuning in and we're going to talk about monocolor again. We're going to have a bit of a monocolor chat because we've restarted up those reveals.
Yes,
We're
it's very
back,
exciting.
baby. So this week, a bit of a smaller one for reveals, but very exciting cards. Firstly, we'll just dive right into it.
Let's do it.
Jabba the Hutt, Cunning Daimyo. I love this card.
Yeah, we've seen the art for this for a very long time, but
Yeah.
we've finally gotten the card for it.
I love it.
This is a 4-cost Cunning Villainy, obviously. It is a 2/8.
That's huge.
Big
just like,
butt.
Just as we expect from the big Huttese slug, he's got a fat booty.
His ability, look at the top 10 cards, choose...
It's top 8.
Sorry, top 8. Choose a trick from among them and draw it.
Yep. So that's his when played.
Yep, he also has a passive effect.
He sure does. Your tricks cost 1 less.
Yeah, so
Wow.
currently we only have 4 tricks.
4? Oh yeah, we do have 4. One's a hero card.
One is a hero card. We have Shoot First,
That's a good trick.
Asteroid Sanctuary,
Also a good trick.
Bamboozle,
That Han Solo featured in the artwork.
and a 4th one,
Waylay.
Waylay.
Waylay is a trick.
Wayley's a trick?
Waylay is a trick.
Oh, I didn't realize Wayley was a trick.
Waylay is a trick. I love this card.
Yeah, this is a very cool card,
Card's
and it's a
sweet.
card that works, like, it's like, oh, it only works with tricks. It's like, you're running all those tricks most of the time.
Yeah.
In
There will also be more
Mono
tricks,
yellow
and
decks.
for me, the first thing I saw about this card that made me get a huge smile. What's set 2, James?
That would be
Shadows
Shadows of the Galaxy.
And it's set in the Outer Rim. If we don't see any tricks in Shadow of the Galaxy, I'm gonna be right.
No, I think we're definitely going to get another Cunning Villainy trick, because there are spots for
Yeah.
events for Cunning
I
Villainy,
think
and
we'll
I
see
think we're
at
going
least
to get
one more trick this set, and then I think trick will probably be a reoccurring event subtype that we see. This card's awesome. The fact it has 8 health is wild. I played a couple of games with Jabba now, and I must say, in a Boba Fett deck, using a free shoot first to kill something and untap 1 resource for free is gross.
Yeah, it's very good, and Jabba fits into that deck very well, especially with all the events that it has. It is running all these tricks. It's running for Shoot First. It's running Asteroid Sanctuary. It's running Waylay already. So it's just a card that makes the deck better, which is always a good thing to look at when you're looking at new cards and whether they fit into decks. It's like, if this was a deck where I wasn't running those cards, and to put him in, I would also have to put in those cards. It's like, then it's more of a think of like, oh, is he good? Like, is it worth running those cards for? But when you're already running those cards, it's such an easy thing to be like, yes, cool, like, he's good.
I love this card, and I really hope it lends a kind of insight into what a potential Jabba leader might be like, where he synergizes with events. Because if you ask me, we might not have seen him set 1, but set 2,
Yeah.
again, is Shadows of the Galaxy. It's all about the Outer Rim.
I can't imagine him not getting a Jabba leader.
Jabba pretty much controls it. But he controls a large portion of it, and by the end of the Clone Wars, most of the Hutts are dead, and it's just him.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited to see where this goes. I think it's a really cool kind of mechanic that has been brought in the first set. That's going to... I think we're going to be able to see more... Like, they've proved that the traits matter.
Yeah.
And they've proved that they're going to provide support for these traits and really make these traits seem really cool. And I think we're going to just see more of that as we go along.
I love this card. I think this card's really, really solid. I give it a 4.5 out of 5. I think I think where it fits is really good. If the tricks it synergized with were worse, I would rank it lower. But all of them are almost auto-includes. If you're running yellow, you're running Shoot First. Like, Asteroid Sanctuary, we've established pretty early on that it's a really good card.
Very, very good card.
Waylay has been here pretty much since... Waylay's been here since day 1.
It's pretty close.
Yes, Waylay's been here since day 1, and it's always a card that I find myself going, I'm running a yellow mid-range or control deck, 2 Waylay.
Yeah.
Next
Yeah.
card's pretty interesting though.
This card is very interesting. As we said, with the return of the
Double monocolors and
monocolors and their
You
reveals.
got your
and
wish.
I've got my wish. There is double vigilance.
Here it is, double blue.
Upgrade. It is a 1 cost.
What?
It gives +1/+1 and Sentinel. Very simple. Very cool.
I saw this and I was like, meh, for about 5 seconds before I thought about it. Because then I went, put this on Yoda.
Yep.
Could put this on Kanan.
Yep.
Could put this on leaders. You could put it on Krennic. You could put it on
Luke.
Death Troopers. You could put it on Luke. You could put it on whoever the other leader coming out is. It could be really good. But
This is a really cool card. And a card that is going to see a lot of play in these mono decks. Obviously, I've seen people being like, well, if you're not running mono, you're not playing 3 for it. And I agree with that.
I agree with that.
But I think that these mono cards are designed for those mono decks.
I think this card would be ridiculous if it was single color. I think it would be so strong.
Yeah.
There wouldn't be a deck in like it would become probably the best sideboard card. In the fact they made it double vigilance, I think it was a really good move by the devs. And in my opinion, it actually does make blue a little bit more competitive. I would say gives it the edge to make it really close, if not top of the
like
top
mono
of the
blue
line.
villain we already knew was quite good because of Charleston and Dooku and all that heavy control. Mono blue hero is yet to be really seen come to the forefront. We might be seeing that a little bit more in the gameplay video if you check that out. But the thing that I've noticed about it is all that restore going in plus vigilance that heals 5. It's going to be a deck that is the equivalent of a DPS check. It is going to be a deck that says, can you deal enough damage to me?
I do like being able to play a Dooku to kill something, to put +1/+1 Sentinel on it. I think that's really great because he comes in, he's shielded, goes to a 6/5.
Yeah.
And like, even if he dies, from most of my experience, Dooku's gonna like get swung into and killed. But this just makes it so that it puts it into a position where your opponent doesn't have the luxury. And actually, Protector does this with a lot of cards. Your opponent doesn't have the luxury of choosing how they do it anymore. If your opponent wants to make the most out of their cards, that's why I like Sentinels in this game. Is because when you play it, your opponent now has to play on your terms. They have to get rid of your Sentinel first if they want to do stuff. And they have to play in a way they might not have planned to. Play an Avenger. Put this on it. Nice space arena.
Yeah, it's one of those things, and it's one of the things, like, again, Yoda, even something as simple as that, creating a 3/5 Sentinel.
When it dies, you draw.
When it dies, I
It's
draw.
just going to keep attacking.
Yeah.
And then if you're able to get a lightsaber on it.
Yeah. And
then,
I think, like, you're going to see today in versus mono yellow, which I think is its biggest probably weakness in the fact that it continuously bounces things rather than
mono
killing them.
yellow, I think we can agree that was probably the strongest dual color
Yeah.
pairing. And definitely blue, for me, blue definitely gives a run for its money. Like these, I would say they're the two strongest. So we're going to unpack that more in a little bit.
But yeah, I absolutely love this card, and I think it's a really strong addition to one of, I think, weirdly enough, my favorite color combination, which is just blue-blue.
It's just a color. It's not even a combination. But no, time and time again, I think we haven't recorded it, but you've been on double blue for a while. Like pretty early on, you were on. I think
my double blue is your blue-red
blue-red
villain.
Ah man, I've been working on that deck hard. But I actually think this card's incredibly good. I actually think it bumps up the competitiveness of Mono Vigilance quite significantly, and even brings Mono Vigilance Hero a bit more into the forefront, where Villain really did have a controlling say, because Villain just had the monopoly on removal and good Sentinels, like Academy Walker, Charleston. So I definitely think this is great. I would give it a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, and speaking of double
Mono
blue,
let's go.
we're going to be talking about each of the kind of mono colors, what they mean, what their weaknesses are, what their strengths are, what they can kind of do in, and why you would pick them over, say, going blue-red.
And 3 of them have some missing cards still. So we're going to theorize about what we would like to see to kind of complete that color pie, the monocolor pie. out of those three, because it seems like for all you spreadsheet kids out there, it seems like each color is getting 3 dual colors.
Yeah.
We've seen the first 4, which is just the cycle, the aspect cycle, and then all of Cunning's obviously got all of theirs. I wonder who the favorite color child is at the dev team. But we're going to get reds next week. So diving into it.
Yeah. As I said, I've been working with Mono Blue for a very long time, especially the villain variant of it. And the strongest thing I can say in it is that it is very hard to play kind of mid-range against it.
Yeah,
I think it's a deck that might fall to early aggro, but as soon as it's stabilized, it's so hard to knock off its pedestal.
You either have to play hard control or incredibly fast aggro, because this deck stomps mid-ranges, because you just let it run out and do what it wants. And hard control struggles against Mono Blue Villain too, because you're both trying to run out the clock.
Yeah.
But usually hard control still wants to get to its win con. I can safely say Mill's pretty good. I've beaten it. I've been beaten by it. For those who are scared of it, I'd say don't think it's a boogeyman, but don't underestimate it. I think it's definitely a viable strategy that if we get some more support, we could see appear in later sets. And the devs have said it's probably not going to be a thing in this set. You could build it in this set if you're a madman. But they have said that it will 100% be getting support in later sets. I'd wager we'll probably be seeing it sets 3, 4 maybe. Same with hand discard. But
I agree, and I think that the villain side of this is like Charleston is incredible. The turn 3 usually 6/6 because you usually got the cards in hand to make it to have it there. 6/6 Sentinel is really strong, and I think it's one of the reasons why things like a Bamboozle and that new red event have come in to try and kind of counter that by removing all upgrades. So that's something that's really important to know, that like while it is a deck that kind of relies on Charleston to stabilize that ground area a little bit at the moment, at least. So having heavy upgrade removal like that could be really strong against it and be one of its kind of flaws. And that just kind of moves into its flaw of early game. It's not great. Like even with the addition of the Inferno 4, it's not really adding a lot to like it being able to stabilize itself, more just adding to get more units for later to help stabilize. I think I
do think cards like Make an Opening help in the early game a little bit, where you can, even if you're not getting rid of the problem right then and there, because realistically the deck might not have the options to, you can actually slow down aggro pretty hard.
Yeah.
Because you can net gain life out of it. And in the comparison between Mono Blue Villain and Mono Blue Hero are very different. Mono Blue Villain, I think, is way more controlling. It has by far the most amount of removal in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think in any color, I think that color pairing blue black Blue Villain has the most removal in it. I think it's got Dooku, Avenger, Death Troopers, like all that kind of stuff. I'm sure there's some I'm forgetting. But Mono Blue Hero really focuses like a lot on restore, on healing.
Yeah, that's moving on to the blue white of it. Having built the deck today, kind of getting ready to play it, kind of testing out a few things.
Like everything heals.
Everything heals, and then you also get devotion on top of that, right?
Yeah.
You start with a R2D2. And you give it a shield turn 1, turn 2, you slap devotion on it. Suddenly it's a 2/5 shielded
Protector.
Devotion 2/5 shielded with restore 2.
Oh yeah, oh wow, wow.
It's like suddenly this R2D2 that you could before you kind of ignore and be like, oh, I've got a shield, I'll deal with it eventually. You can't keep letting it restore 2 every turn. Then they put out Yoda the next turn, and then it's
interesting because I actually think that the weakness of Blue Villain is actually like you flip their weaknesses. So
yeah,
aggro honestly, if you get your healing engine set up quickly enough with the trades, with the shields, you can trade pretty favorably and heal. Aggro really can't do too much to you, but hard control and removal like takedown and Dooku's and things like that really hamper the deck. It's really interesting to see. I love the hero healing side of things because I think when I play it, I don't actually expect to heal as much as I usually do, and then I heal heaps.
Yeah. It's like one of those things where it's like, oh, it doesn't heal that much. And you're like, oh no, Restored Arc, Yoda, Kanan, Luke. Actually.
Yeah.
and then you put Devotion on top of that. That's just come out
Yeah.
recently, where it's like, oh, any unit can have
Any
Restore
unit.
too.
Any unit.
And we've
can
seen
have
the
Restore.
power of that on Kanan, as shown by the devs on that
made me
stream.
very happy. That made me very happy.
Heal, discard, heal again.
Yeah, it's wild. I think that card's super cool. It's really cool. It's really interesting to see. I mean, even Chewie playing Sentinels to slow down your opponent's slow down your opponent's aggro turns. Like that kind of stuff's really interesting. We haven't seen the third and final. The fourth. Third and final hero blue leader. Really excited to see that. Fingers crossed on it being Kanan. But who knows?
We also haven't seen the third and final double vigilance, and
what are we missing? What do you think? I feel like you're the expert on these colors. What do you think we're missing?
I think, firstly, what I think we're missing completely is an early draw, especially for the villain side. Often I just won't do anything in turn 1 just to make sure I have the hand for Charlton on turn 3. But having a 2-cost draw a card or search top 5 for a something is going to be huge for those decks, and I think that's definitely something that needs to come by. I don't think that's going to be what the mono. I think that's going to be either single color vigilance or either hero or villain.
I think if we're going to get that card, it's going to do something probably. Okay, this might be calling it, but I think it will search for a force.
That would be very cool because you could also search for things like
Yoda and Kanan in that one, or Dooku's.
Well, I was also going to say like It Binds All Things.
Yeah, It Binds All Things. If you're running another color deck, you could search for force strokes and things.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be very cool. But I think mono blue, I think we're missing a good 3-cost unit that can compete with Yoda. I think if you the problem is with a hero, if you don't draw Yoda in those first 2 turns, you do kind of go, don't really have anything to play. So I think something around that 3-cost range is going to be really strong in double blue. And I'm hoping for another unit rather than I think it'd
be pretty interesting to see something along the lines of. Again, I'm probably super biased on it, but I think it'd be cool to see something like a force-sensitive initiate or something like that, where it's not leaning either way, but it's got the force keyword, and it does, maybe it heals, maybe it draws, but I feel like it would do something along the line. I personally think it'll probably have shielded.
Maybe.
But quick disclaimer as well. James and I are pretty much in agreement that each of the double colors will probably get a unit each. So you'll probably notice a trend for green and red as well.
Yeah, I think that having a unit that signifies those double colors is a good thing to have for each of them. I know Cunning has 2, but I think I don't think they're going to have one. I don't think Aggression is going to get 3 events.
No.
I think it's going to be an event, another event, and then a unit.
And I mean, the reason Cunning has 2 units is because overall the color yellow is really event heavy. So a lot of the time when you're running yellow with another color, most of your units are coming from that other color. So if you're running mono yellow, they kind of needed to put something else in.
And boy, did they.
Boy, they did. But I think it'd be cool to see a force initiate type deal.
That'd be cool.
Has the force keyword, maybe heals.
Yeah, definitely. I think that'd be really cool. I think also
could mill.
I would love if they got one of a unit that milled, but I don't think it's going to be happening.
On attack, your opponent mills 3.
Mills
30. Mills 10. Make it happen.
Mills 100. Fucking.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? Stop me?
They lose.
I'm just going to write it on marker.
You play it and they lose.
Yeah.
That's a joke.
Yeah. But I think that's all we're going to talk about for that mono blue there. We talked a little bit about when we were talking about the devotion, the protector as well. So
overall, strengths of mono blue are healing, easy access to shields, and probably access to the best, cleanest removal in the game, although it is more expensive than most.
In Takedown and Vanquish, both have...
The reason is that it's just the cleanest. It's
just like, go away.
Done and dusted. Its weaknesses, overall, depending on the kind you're running, watch out, much like every colour, for aggro. But a lot of the time, I think you can be pretty well set against mid-range and control.
Yeah, the nice thing is that blue can kind of function without a board as well, because it can vanquish, it can take down, it can vigilance to kill something and heal 5. It can kind of stabilize without a board in a similar way
most blue decks are very stally. Like the Vader deck I play is kind of just like, I just wait till I get Vader out. I don't care if neither of us have anything out. In fact, that's favorable for me because I know you can't deal with Vader, but I can deal with everything you've got.
Yeah. The next one we're going to talk about is command. So double command,
boy.
and I think one of the really telling things about double command at the moment is the only double command deck that I really see pushed at the moment is the Hera deck.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is...
You can run other colours.
It can run other colours. It can run that Kanan, the Ezra, the Sabine to help fill out its ranks. Mono command at the moment is in a very strange spot in that both of its monocolor events that it has are...
Very unit focused.
Yeah, very unit focused.
You need to have a board.
And... which is very green, but it's also that at the moment they're seen as kind of the lower of the power level. Some people are really in on command, some people are really low on command. I think it sits somewhere around the middle.
Yeah.
But there's nothing that really wows you about either of them.
I do think command is, out of the 4 colours personally, I do think it's probably the weakest currently. I definitely think we could see some improvement on that, but it's interesting when you look at command in like a contained environment because it has some of the best cards. It just has it has got Death Star DJ, you've got Resupply, you've got the Iadu Conversion Complex base, like all of that stuff. I see that and I'm like, man, this awesome overwhelming barrage, like so sweet, but it's just kind of it feels like there's something missing, and we've still got a lot of green to go, so I'm sure we'll see it. But a couple of things I think notable about green is. It has a lot of troopers.
Yeah, it has a lot of troopers because it goes with kind of Tarkin and that kind of side of things.
Yeah, it wants to go wide. I personally think that mono green villain's really good, or at least has the potential to be. And in our Meta Watch video, I cited it as mono green Tarkin as a deck to watch out for. That may have changed now. I mean, we did mention that in the video, subject to change, but I do agree with the fact that I think Hera's pretty solid, but the main reason she is really good is because she has access to all the Spectres.
Yeah, she kind of has that
all really good
buffer of I can only take green units, but also I have these 3 really good units I can just slot in there, and you run 3 of each of them. Yeah. Like there's no green unit that you're sitting there being like, oh, do I run Kanan or do I run this green unit?
I do really like Hera too because she's got access to a lot of really solid cards recently. Like Mon Mothma is so good in that deck.
Yeah.
All the Spectres are rebels. Mon Mothma is unique, so you can buffer with Hera on the flip side. Like, I think that's a pretty solid first turn play if you don't get your Sabine. I think Mon Mothma is really good in that deck, whereas in others, there are rebels in green, but I'm not sure if there are enough to warrant mono green Leia. Because I know that we've seen red green Leia. I think you're just hampering yourself if you're not playing.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things is you just don't see mono green Leia at all. Like it's red or even yellow or even blue. I've seen some people go, but like I've not seen a single mono Leia deck.
I just don't think it has enough. Because there are so many rebels in other colors that are so good that even just some of them I'm like, I would just run this color just to get this card. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that's one of the key things that we can look at the one card that's left. And to me, with the other 2 cards so focused on having a board state, I think this card needs to give you a board state.
I think it needs to play a unit when you play it,
I want it to be a unit that plays another unit on play.
That's what I want.
Yeah, I want something like a 5 cost when played.
Similar to Vader. Something similar to because the Vader legendary is awesome, and if we can see something like that plays another command unit,
I would love it even if it was from hand.
Yeah.
Play a 3 cost unit from hand. Give it ambush for the turn. Like, I think that would be a really cool thing of, like, you play it and you play something else that ambushes in.
I think we could see something similar to that, but it plays it from hand or discard pile. But I agree completely. I think that is the card it's missing, because if you ask me, out of the 2 colours, I think Hera's really good, but I do think mono green villain is actually kind of wild.
Yeah, I think we've definitely got like
Vader, Overwhelming Barrage, Death Star DJ, like Tarkin is a really solid leader, and if everyone is correct and it is Palpatine, we could actually see that being a real deck.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that card works on both sides for what they're trying to do. So I think that's going to be a really interesting card to kind of see go forward.
That card and just get a Spectre out, which would be really good.
I think that, as you said, Palpatine is going to be really interesting because we think he's going to be a very high-costed leader, and that means you're ramping towards something that can't be removed immediately, right? Yeah. It's one of those things where you're not ramping towards the Devastator that can be vanquished. You're ramping towards this big
unlimited power
that just cannot be waylaid. It cannot be vanquished. It cannot be, it must be
swung into
through hundreds of my own men until it...
death by 1,000 cuts. But yeah, no, I think keep your eye out for Palpatine, because I think he's going to be a leader that synergizes with ramp and villain cards is my theory. But I would love to see a unit that plays another unit. I agree. I think that'd be so awesome.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Green would need in its go wide strategy. Like, I don't think it would be a super bad play if I could play a unit, get another unit out, and then the next turn follow it up with attack pattern delta. That actually would be more appealing than what attack pattern delta already is. Like, okay, I look at that card and I just go, eh.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you need a good board state to really run it, the same as kind of command. And so having a card that allows you to build that board state a lot easier is really important for those decks. And yes, Hera has gotten a huge bump recently with those command cards that have come through. So with that, Strike True probably being the biggest thing of awesome Green was missing removal a lot, and having that Strike Through come true is huge for it. I think that that card is going to get played in every single Hera deck, and like Leia might skip out on it just because it's got access to like the open fire and stuff like that. But even then, sometimes...
See, I run Strike True in so many decks. I put it in my Iden Green deck. I put it in my Vader Ramp deck. I put it in my Green Yellow Boba. For sure, I put it in there. It's
absolutely
ridiculous. That card with Bosk, people, I'm telling you, that's wild.
But yeah, very, very cool card that has come through. And I think is going to... I think while we say we haven't seen a lot of those mono green decks, a lot of the mono green decks haven't really been explored yet, and I'm excited to see where that goes when we get that Palpatine leader who can already kind of see a pattern of like, well, if I just play a Emperor's Royal Guard, that's actually already really hard to compete with.
Yep, it becomes a 4/4.
4/5. No, 3/5.
3/5? Oh, but that's right. It becomes a 3/5 with
Because it's 3/4 is a 3/5.
It becomes a 3/5 with Sentinel.
So that's a card that's really going to be able to help you kind of... it's going to have the same stats as Boba, essentially, and then
Royal Guard is already good in Tarkin.
Yeah.
I can't wait for it to be good with Palp.
Yeah, and we're really excited to see what Palp does in terms of his ability, and then like the assumption is he's going to flip into big boy.
I reckon he'll be the last leader shown. Yeah. I think that because they've hinted at him a lot. There's a lot of hype around him. He's the Emperor, man. Like,
so it's gonna be another 3 weeks or so before we see him.
I personally would say that overall, Green's strengths lie in what we've already been told. It probably can. It builds up a really nice board, and it can strengthen that board.
Yeah.
What its weakness is right now is that it does need time to do that.
Yeah, like when Green has a board, it's unstoppable. But if you can stop Green from getting a board, falls flat on its face.
Something to jump over those hurdles.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I would say right now, Green's hero versus villain is honestly even. I think Hera, because really the only contenders are Hera and Tarkin. And I would say both of those decks, mono green in the case of Hera, I'd say they're pretty much the same right now. Like, I don't think there's really a disparity. And I can hear you already typing, but overwhelming barrage, raw. And it's like, yes.
Overwhelming Barrage is fantastic.
But if you don't have a board, what are you going to do with it?
But it's also just better in red-blue Tarkin, or blue-green Krennic is a big one that people like to run.
Yellow-green Boba.
That's...
it's just... I think Overwhelming Barrage is always good. It's not good in this, but right now, it's definitely not making the most of the card.
I think if Overwhelming Barrage was a green card, it would be a very good contender to bring those into. But I think at the moment, there's just so much more gained from going red, green, or blue than staying in mono green at the moment. And I think that's one of the big things about the big reasons why we've seen so many of the other colors, but not so much of green.
And that's right now, the pitfall of green is just not being able to build up a board quick enough. Watch us regret this statement when Set 3 Twilight of Republic comes out and we get a bunch of clones. Fingers crossed on getting unit tokens. But next up, we've got
Aggression.
Probably one of my favorite monocolor.
The one we've seen the least monocolor for.
I would say this is my favorite monocolor though. I think it's real fun.
I think I'm biased because I love mono blue, but this is definitely up there in like right up there with blue in what I really like.
For me, all 4 of the leaders. Sorry, that's 5 leaders. Sorry, IG. He's fun, but the 4 main leaders. All of them are awesome. So Mono Red Sabine, Mono Red Cassian. I love that. I love how you can go Mono Red aggro or even Mono Red mid range. And then it's the same with the other decks, right? Like you can go mid range with Vader and then aggro with Inquisitor. And I love Red Inquisitor. I think
Mono Red Inquisitor is a lot of fun. You saw that in a gameplay video a couple of weeks ago. That's a really fun deck, and while it didn't quite... Oh no, it won.
You won that one,
yeah.
We played a couple of games afterwards, and it honestly was pretty even.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where mono red is one of the coolest.
It just does. It feels like it does so much comparatively. It feels, and I know I can hear you tippy tapping away already. I love you all, but telling me that Cunning does the most. Factually, I would probably say I would agree with that. Yeah, Cunning does, but it doesn't feel the most tricksy. Like I feel like when I'm playing mono red, I'm feeling like I can ping here and do this and untap this, and suddenly this guy's got raid, and like it feels like there's more moving. I guess that's the thing. There's more moving parts in mono red.
Yeah, I think one of the things at the moment is that for a purely aggro deck, it is just better to put yellow.
Oh yeah,
I think
shoot first.
Yeah, I think so. Like that's why Sabine is. It's red yellow. It's red yellow. It's red yellow. It's red yellow. Sorry, you said another color. I can't hear you. I keep playing red yellow.
And that's fair. That's the right way to build Sabine.
Yeah, and obviously there are other ways to build her, and you can, and they will be strong. But obviously there is that kind of.
Currently, the most optimal way is yellow Sabine.
Yeah.
Just because it has access to, like, for no other reason than just those 6 cards we mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that.
2 cards. Play savage.
And I think that mono red at the moment does fall into that pit trap of, well, I only have one double red event in aggression, which is good.
Good double red event.
But that at the moment, it's very easily overshadowed by being like, I want to go red green, I want to go red yellow, I want to go red blue for Grand Inquisitor even.
I also think red is the hardest. Mono red is the hardest to sequence your turn with.
Yeah, especially in Grand Inquisitor when you're just untapping things and going for things, and it's like I got 12 damage here somehow.
I played a Grand Inquisitor deck the other day. Like I was playing it a couple of games in a row, and I got stomped except for one game at the end. They got stomped. And I was like, I must be missing something here. And I realized I just wasn't sequencing correctly. And then it was like one of the fastest wins I've ever had. But like it was interesting because I can see the potentials there, and it's kind of comforting to know that we still have a lot of neutral red and double red cards to come.
Yeah, this is the least shown at the moment. We currently have two. We assume two aggression cards still coming.
We know one's an event.
We know one's event. We assume the other is probably going to be a unit because it's very heavily speculated that it's going to be Saw Gerrera because his partisans are all neutral red,
They all
and we assume that
synergize with red.
so he's going to be the leader of them in a red.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be really cool. I really hope that synergizes really well with that raid function. You can bring 2 tubes, you can bring partisan insurgents, and really, like, even those 2 cards we've seen in Hera just doing so much work.
See, I wouldn't mind if Saw is something along the lines of, like, when you play him, you can pick, like, a combined cost of 3 across your units and ready them. So you pick like a combined power cost of 3 across your units and ready them, and then maybe he has like another passive or something, because that would be sweet if I could be all like, swing 2 tubes, swing partisan, Saul, untap him, swing 2 tubes, swing partisan.
That would be very powerful, and I think that like kind of pushes. I think the leader that's going to benefit the most from both of these cards coming down is probably going to be Cassian. If I had to guess, I think Cassian is in a strange spot where if you go aggro, Sabine is just better, and if you go control, it's just it's hard to deal with those like aggro decks. I think like Leia and like at the moment aggro is just Leia and Sabine, and that's the only.
Cassian it's not like, I don't think it's that great. Yellow Cassian, you play it and it's like, I can't believe it's like not Sabine.
Yeah, it's just kind of like slightly worse Sabine.
But green Cassian is pretty good. It's a really solid mid-range deck. But I think if you're gonna be, I said this when we saw the leader, guys. It's a mid-range deck. Anyone who saw it was like, "This is aggro." I think you are incorrect on that. I definitely think this is a mid-range leader, and I think that mono red mid-range Cassian could work.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference between Leia and Cassian. I think Leia takes the aggro route because it has that double swing. Yeah. Cassian is taking the... and Leia relies on that black one to refill their hand at that turn 5 if they haven't already killed you, which most of the time they have. But, you know, if they haven't yet.
It's a good deck. I told you people.
It's a very good deck. And so Cassian takes the other side of that where it takes open fire. It takes, like... aggression, and it says, okay, I'm going to control you a little bit more. I'm going to be using my resources to clear your board instead of just being like face.
Still going to get the swings in and things like that. I mean, look, I will say it. I remember when we sat down and I saw Leia leader, and I went, Leia red's going to be absolutely bonkers.
That is a deck that you said from the very beginning that it would be good, and you were correct.
And then when I saw Cassian, I said he would be really good with yellow. And I was wrong. Because after playing Yellow Cassian, it just falls into the same... To build Cassian optimally, you have to build Sabine.
Yeah.
And then at that point, you just swap out.
I think that's the biggest thing in a Cassian deck versus a Leia deck, even though they're both going, like, at the moment, we're both kind of leaning towards that red-green. I think that it's huge how different those two decks, even if a lot of the cards in them are similar, they do have a lot of the same cards. But the changes of the cards are really important. How you use those cards is so different in those two decks. Also,
Leia, realistically, cannot monocolor. Whereas Cassian can.
Yeah, Leia really struggles, as we were talking about in the green. Yellow really struggles to monocolor at the moment. But Cassian mono red is going to be a really interesting deck.
You can run the partisans, you can run aggression. Depending on your hero count, if you want to push it, you can even run 4 recalls, I believe it.
Yeah, that's one of the weird things about Cassian going monocolored at the moment. It is a little bit tough for him to keep that like level of heroism cards. I think as we go into set 2, set 3, Cassian
You go
mono
mono
red
red, all
hero
hero,
is
yeah.
going to become a really cool thing, but at the moment it's a little bit.
I will say it right now. For a mid-range deck, if you're running a large quantity of hero cards, playing for a cause I believe in is not bad.
Yeah, even if you only deal like 2 damage.
Pinging for 2 and stacking it, that's what I was just going to say. Pinging for 2 and stacking your deck in a deck that consistently draws and wants to be mid-range is pretty solid. Yeah. That's pretty great.
And if you're running that more mid-range counterpart to it, a really good addition to the deck, I believe, and I know there's a card that's kind of people have tried to throw into certain places, but it hasn't really fit, is that You're My Only Hope. A card that is kind of used, is considered more of a janky card, more of a risky card. But when you're throwing out for a cause I believe in, even if you're only being like, okay, I'm happy to do 2 damage, I'm happy to do like 2 to 3 damage, being able to stack your deck then You're My Only Hope, it then becomes a really interesting card to get out 5 cost earlier, whether it's something like
K2SO,
Zeb even, and to something a little bit like different. Maybe we get a 5 cost mono. Maybe Saw is 5 cost, and then you start bringing him out with. Yeah. Oh wait, no, it's a heroism card, isn't it? No, it's not. It's just any card.
It's just if it's 5, and if your life is 5 or less, you may play it for free.
Yeah, so it's a 5 cost Saw. Like then you bring him out for 3, and suddenly it's really interesting.
Off the top on turn 2 with that card.
Yep.
If you played a R2 turn 1 and you scribed and you saw aggression there, and you're like, all right, turn 2, I'll aggression you. I actually think You're My Only Hope is. I think I've come around a bit to it with your teachings, but it's not bad. It's a consistent unit. It's a consistent hero card for a cause. It's a solid mid-range piece as a reduction cost. On turn 6, I pointed this out to you as well. You get 8. Like at the maximum, you get 8 costs worth of value. If you for a cause and play this, you can nearly guarantee that depending on what you flip off.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the I think people have been waiting to use this card for more deck knowledge, and for a cause, everyone went, oh my god, it's an aggression card, it's a burn card, it's really cool, and kind of forgot that they were looking for a card exactly like this to play.
Yeah, to play whatever you stack.
Yeah, so I think that's going to be really interesting how that comes along, and when we see those extra 2 cards, what do you think that event's going to be?
I don't know, man, because I wouldn't mind seeing something where it's like draw 2, discard 1.
I don't think it's going to be anything that we see on aggression. I think that's one of the things that...
Could be discard. Could be make your opponent discard a card at random, because they've also said that aggression, that's one of aggression's things, is that it's going to make your opponent's discard immediately like that. And K2SO does it. K2 says discard a card at random.
It could be something that synergizes more with that line of aggression.
I think it's either going to be a card that makes your opponents discard cards at random. And I mean, we've seen it again with Force Throw. I mean, your opponent, you choose.
Well, they said that aggression won't be at random. So for aggression, your opponent will always choose the card they discard.
Oh, that's right.
So
that's right. Sorry, and cunning will be.
Yeah. So I think possibly we could have something that's mono aggression that's like maybe it's your opponent discards a card, draw 1 card for each aspect on it.
Whoa, that would be good.
So they either draw 1 or 2 cards.
That's pretty great. I would like that. If that's like a 3 cost event, that'd be sweet.
I think that'd be really cool.
Because then that gives incentive for mono red players to be like, okay, well, whilst this deck can run mission briefing, I can run this.
Yeah, exactly. And it kind of creates a different mission briefing where it's also doing something else, which is something, the downside of mission briefing is using an action and some of your resources.
Interesting if they just got a grey card.
Yeah, then you don't get to draw anything.
It's true.
Just like for Force Star, if they discard Metal Ceremony, you don't get to do any damage.
Don't get to do any damage.
But yeah, it's I think something really interesting like that would fit in really well.
I could see the lower cost if that's the case. Maybe like a 2 cost card. That'd be pretty sweet. I think that would be pretty awesome. And then the unit, I think Saw. I definitely think Saw, and I reckon he'll synergize with having aggression units or raid.
Yeah, it
Just
definitely
'cause
seems
both
like that's kind of...
both the partisans do it.
Yeah, I would love to see something like that where he's really focused on... It can even be something crazy like all your units with raid gain a shield or something like that to really like be like, hey, they're here, they're sticking around.
Untap ready all your units with raid.
Well, that'd be nuts.
That'd be good.
And then giving raid to something with two tubes becomes even better because then oh wow, that's really cool.
You could attack, you could give the Grand Inquisitor leader raid, you could swing, untap your partisans, swing with the partisans place, or untap your Grand Inquisitor and your partisans, swing Grand Inquisitor, untap 2/2, swing 2/2s,
yeah.
It would become a really fun...
Keep fighting.
Keep fighting, bring him back now. But I would love to see something like... I think Red, surprisingly, makes for a great mono red aggro deck. But it also works really well for mid-range. I don't think it has what it takes to be control. I don't think mono red really hits it with control.
Yeah, I think when we start to look at maybe a mono red Vader deck that takes into more of that control area, even then...
that's really fast.
Yeah.
Like even that as like I would consider that more mid-range because it wins middle-of-the-road type of game where by the time you flip Vader... because
Vader's just ending the turn that turn or the next turn.
But it's ending it at turn 7, whereas an aggro deck tries to end it like turn 4 or 5. And then a control deck's probably ending the game around you've lost count. But it's won. But yeah, I would say the current weaknesses for mono red. One, lack of dual color cards.
Yep. I think number 2 at the moment is they very easily run out of resources. Yeah. I think we say they can't. It doesn't really do control. What it does is it just falls off towards the end. It can't keep up with its pace.
Which is why I think Cassian is pretty great, is because he has draw on him. And I think, finally, I think those are probably his biggest weaknesses, but his best strengths are, it's really quick. It's the quickest out of all the monocolors in terms of aggression and dealing damage. It has a lot of interesting toys, and it is the color, in my opinion, that has the most moving parts and complexity. I think it can do... I think playing mono red is one of those things where you'll sit there for a turn and then you'll go, I'm stumped. And then you'll look and you'll go, oh. Yeah. And then suddenly you've just dealt 15 damage.
Yeah, it's especially with Grand Inquisitor. I think that is the pinnacle deck of if you want a deck that can be really good. If you're really good at sequencing and knowing when to play things.
I'll tell you right now, if you put the effort into Grand Inquisitor, you'll be wildly strong. That deck's like really... I've sat against Grand Inquisitor decks and gone, this is unbeatable. And then the next game, one thing is done wrong and it's like, well, there goes the House of Cards.
Yeah.
So hopefully we get some more stuff to synergize to make that a little bit more consistent. And I mean, I'm sure we'll see stuff in future sets, but I think it'll be really nice to see some stuff in this set.
Yeah. Moving on to the last one that we have.
Creme de la creme.
I think we've got the most for it. Probably has the only deck that is seen currently as a meta deck. And one of the top tier decks, and that is mono yellow. And there are 2 decks that I really want to talk about in this section. One, obviously, is that Boba deck. We knew Boba was super strong. We knew it was super strong with green. Yeah. Yellow Cunning is probably one of the best of that line. I think Bodhi Rook is a really interesting card. We'll talk about that a little bit later when we talk about the other deck that I really want to talk about. But I think Cantina Bouncer is a card that I definitely slept on. I didn't think was great, but I think is definitely has a place in those decks. And key to, more than anything, what mono yellow Bowen needed was units, and what it got was units.
Mono yellow has the most resources and the most tricks in the game. I mean, he's got Jabba now to search for them, which is awesome. That feels like a card that mono yellow villain really needed. It's got great control leaders in the form of Thrawn, a great mid-range / control leader in the form of Boba. It's got some really interesting aggro, even in the form of Han. I've seen a couple people play Mono Yellow Han Space Race. Just getting that out there, it works, I guess. But I don't think. I definitely think cutting out of the 4 of the aspect cycle, that's the strongest. It just does so much to hamper your opponent.
It does so much in so many different situations. I think one of the big things about command is it's really good in a very limited situation, whereas cunning is just so good.
There's
you
always
could
a situation where it's good.
bounce something and make him discard, or you can bounce something and go, hey, you get +4.
Tap 2 things down, bounce something, your whole turn's done. Discard a card, tap 2 things down. +4/+0, tap 2 things down. You can't stop me now. Get in. There will always be a use for this card. I think I will never forget the day that I built Mono Yellow Boba, because when Cunning came out, and then I was like, I don't think this is going to win. I don't think it's going to be too good. We sat down and we played. We recorded gameplay for it, and at the end of that, we were both like, was that really just that good? And then we spent maybe a good 3 hours playing games, and Mono Yellow Boba didn't lose.
Yeah, Mono Yellow Boba is a huge deck for control, a huge deck for the kind of tricks and plays that Boba loves, because he can just play. He just says, I can play more than you can on my turn. And with Mono Yellow, that feels more true than ever before.
On the Boba spectrum, I definitely think this is probably one of the weaker versions. I think it's definitely green is number 1, then probably red, then probably yellow, and then blue.
Oh, really?
But I think the main reason because of that is because now every other colour's kind of getting their own mono, and it's bumping back up, and it's getting, because Mono Yellow was the first colour combination that had just all their cards. Just revealed like that. It just got all 3.
We still have a few more command villains, cunning villain stuff to go. But a lot of the hero and a lot of the.
It feels like we shouldn't, and then we just keep getting more, and it's really good.
But a deck that I'm really excited about, and you saw here on the gameplay a little while ago, that I just kind of threw together on the podcast and then played, and I've really enjoyed that. And if you checked out the late night stream that we were on a couple of weeks ago, I played it there too, is Mono Yellow Jin. It's a deck that I really enjoy, and that I think is really interesting to see where it's going to go in the future. I think Bodhi Rook is such a huge card in that deck, and I think that it, in conjunction with Cunning, in conjunction with Sparkle Rebellion, is something people are not prepared for. Something that people are currently looking at everything and being like, I don't need any draw in my deck. And that deck is going to come along and
when you don't have a hand,
show them why they probably should have some draw in their deck.
I've actually played this deck a little bit recently. Even when you don't see all of that discard, the sheer fact of the matter that you can 2-for-1 trade so easily. It is so easy with that deck. The amount of times someone plays a Sabine turn 1, if I have initiative, Lothal Insurgent, I play Sabine, awesome, claim. My next action, tap Jin, I kill your Sabine, and my Lothal Insurgent is on 1 health.
Yep.
And you can 2-for-1 so easy with that deck. It is almost like. I was so surprised when for the first game I played that, where I did turn 1 Lothal Insurgent and then went, oh my god. I was like, alright, I trade here, and then looked at my leader and went, no way. And then just swung.
It's one of those decks where I really enjoy that kind of discard aspect of it, but it doesn't need to run that way, and if you don't see it, it's not the end of the world. When you do see it, it's really cool because you limit, even if you're like, I'm going to discard 2 cards, maybe 3 cards, and then I'm just controlling the board. You limit your opponent's options so much, and especially in decks that run out of steam, I think this deck is going to be really interesting to see where it goes. Yeah. Once this full set releases and we have everything to look at, I think Mono Yellow Jin is a deck that I'm going to really look at as a deck that could be a counter meta to this aggression style, and something where I can trade into. And because one of the key things about Layer at the moment is they just swing face, and let you clear, and then you clear them and trade with them, and then they don't really care. But with Jin, you can kind of create the situation where you're trading into them, but you're not going even on that.
Yeah. It's not a break-even situation where they've got their damage now, they don't care, they're done, they're moving on. You've stopped their damage now, and now you have stuff to stop what's next. So they can't move on. They have to, and that pivots, that forces an aggro deck to pivot into a mid-range, which it can't do.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially with cards like Cunning, which can just tap things down, so you can have that time to be like, all right, and then now I'm going to clear that and survive, and I'm going to clear that and survive, so you can't...
Even tap discard, and the aggro deck's like, cool, there's my last card gone, I claim, and then you're like, sweet, deploy Jin, swing with this, kill that, swing with this, kill that, swing with Jin, kill that, do this, and then you're just like, alrighty, pass, and your opponent's left with a clear board and drawing 2 cards, and you've got 3 in your hand, Jin Ursa on board, and 2 other units. It's like, I've definitely been in that situation a couple of times, and I got to say, I think this is a really good counter meta deck. I think yellow's definitely the strongest monocolor in my opinion. Boba's ridiculous. His simple but effective ability is just always good. No matter how you build Boba, he'll always be just solid and really good to play with. I definitely do think that mono yellow can get stuck right now, and it's one of its biggest weaknesses is actually bricking, which for those who don't know, that term is essentially like you've hit a brick wall where you haven't drawn cards that are applicable in the situation. And the main reason is yellow has a lot of options, a lot of really good tricks and neat little cards. The handoff for that is that you might not be able to get as many units, or you might not be able to get as many applicable cards as you want, and then you might be sitting there like... Mono yellow will be one of those decks where the sideboard is king, where you might lose the first game and you sideboard to fix it to win the next 2. So that's definitely where I think that one of its biggest weaknesses lie, is the fact that it has so many options, and that actually can hamper it in the deck building process, where you might get to a point where you brick and don't see the cards you need.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that's one of the biggest things about mono yellow, that it is event heavy, especially in Boba, and can kind of run out of those events, especially if you have something really strong at clearing board like a blue-red Vader. I think can really be like, hey, I'm just going to clear everything you play, and then you don't have enough units to keep going, and you're like, well, damn.
That's really all we've got time for. I think that's really covers everything off.
Yeah.
And no more yellow double units in set 1.
No more.
No more any double yellow cards in set 1. But thank you for watching. Let us know your thoughts down below. What's your favorite monocolor, and what kind of cards do you want to see in this set or in the future sets? Go check out the gameplay.
It has 2 monocolor decks that are going up against each other, so if you want some proof of what we've talked about here and the strengths and weaknesses of them, go check it out.
Bye.
Bye.